A lot in this video, you're going to hear things like this year, or like this year referring to 2025, because I wrote the script during 2025. I started this video like the tail end of 2025 just as like a fun thing. I didn't think it would be this long or expansive, or that I would finish it, to be honest. But I did actually push through and finish this just as a way to get myself to be more productive or do something. Because I always say like, oh, I want to do some more like YouTube stuff. I want to make more like YouTube videos and stuff like that. And then I always like will start on some of them and then give up because I'm too lazy to do anything. But this time I decided, you know what, I'm going to steal my resolve. I'm going to finish it. I understand we're 3 months now into 2026, and I'm only just now finishing a video that really is only in season for like at most the first month of 2026. But fuck it, man. I don't know. I'm just glad I finished it. My favorite thing to do at the end of the year is look back on it. Bold take, I know. Not many people do that kind of thing, but I'm just different, I suppose. Every year I've wanted to do like reflection videos on what happened that year and what I did that year and best of compilations, and while I've never actually followed through with it, this year is different. Of course, unless the script I'm writing never goes anywhere. This year I wanted to look back on the games I played and rank them from the ones I least enjoyed to the ones I most enjoyed, and tell the empty void exactly why. Let me make it clear that this is a list of games I played this year, not games that came out this year. In fact, only 3 of the games I'll be ranking were released this year, technically 2. I'm also going to be a little wonky with what I count as having played this year, since technically I started some of these entries in prior years and ended up coming back and restarting this year, but everything on this list was played from the beginning during 2025, and if I finished it, it was within the same year as well. None of this matters to anyone except me, but I wanted to make it clear before we started. And of course, our first entry is already going to get me lynched. There is so much to love about this game, but there is also so much to hate. Everything outside of the gameplay is fantastic. The art, the music, the environments, but the problem is that I struggle to enjoy that part when the gameplay is miserable. I might make a dedicated video about Silksong in the future, so for now I want to keep it brief. I was really excited for this. I really did to look past its flaws and enjoy the game, but the problem is the game itself is the flaw, and as long as I'm playing it, I'm not going to be able to ignore them. And unlike others, I'm not going to force myself to like a game that I thoroughly do not enjoy. The community is unfathomably toxic to even the slightest hint of criticism towards the game, which is funny, because insisting it's perfect by force really is the only way you can convince yourself that the game isn't a frustrating and tedious experience. The combination of Souls-like difficulty chuds and the staunch criticism deflectors that inhabit so many indie games makes for a very ugly combination, as seen here. I didn't finish the game. I got up to the court boss rush thing in Act 2, got frustrated, saw a post that complained about it, to which everyone jumped the guide and said you had to get the map lady to help first, which I would not have known had I not seen the post outside of the game. I had to go through Mount Fae, I quit for a month, came back, got to the Bile Water boss, and haven't played it again since. I will finish the game one day, probably with mods, but as it stands I was miserable while playing the game, and I'm not gonna lie to myself just so I can avoid being called bad at video games. My experience with this game is like a fisher who managed to bait and hook a fish masterfully, but then instead of reeling the fish in, they kind of just leave it. The game is the fisher, and I am the fish. I was so fucking locked into this game concept. It freaked me the fuck out. Made me paranoid as shit. I was really anticipating the progression of the gameplay and the kind of horrors it would be throwing at me down the line, only for the gameplay I started with to kind of just keep going. The game also just is not explained to you at all, like not even poorly explained, like it's just not explained. There's a tutorial, but it sucks and it doesn't tell you anything. So you're gonna have to probably go on the internet and look stuff up just to find out about certain mechanics of the game, because it just doesn't tell you anything. And there's a lot of mechanics, so that's a problem. For the first 2 hours of playtime, I was well and truly geeked. It is a masterclass in paranoia and creating tension out of essentially nothing. But as nothing really happened horror-wise or gameplay-wise, that tension sort of just left. And not like in a false sense of security kind of way, more like a trying to hold tension for as long as possible without actual substance to back it up kind of way. In terms of things actually happening, out of all the time I spent in the game, the most notable things to happen were that I had a nightmare one time, I found a weird object in the woods, all the mannequins in my building vanished and I later found them in a pile out in the woods, and a Toyota Corolla rolled past me one time. The core gameplay loop got real tedious, real fast, and I felt like I wasn't really making any level of progression. This is the main reason I stopped playing. I just got really bored of doing the same stupid tasks over and over again for minimal progress. I will admit that I get bored easily. I have ADHD, and while I may not have the TikTok attention span of seemingly most US people my age these days, I struggle with maintaining focus or interest in a lot of things. It is to the point where I have to take medication for school, or else I get so agonizingly bored that I literally just can't pay attention to what is happening, and the day passes incredibly slowly for me. I do not take medication to boot up this game, obviously, so it may be that I didn't enjoy it because I simply got too bored too fast, and if I stuck it out a little longer, I might have gotten to a point where I would have had this higher, but I still think it's valid to say that even if there is a point where it gets fun, it takes too long to get there. And if there isn't that point, then I don't know, I guess it's just a game where you do meaningless chores in hopes that something will happen, and I'd rather just spend that time doing actual chores that do matter for about the same amount of enjoyment. It's a shame. The idea of the game is insanely cool to me. I really wish I liked it more, but I don't. I don't hate this game, I just have a ton of problems with it and not nearly enough positives to justify it being any higher than this. The game is so poorly optimized. It required me to download a fix for it off the internet to be even able to play it, to which I had to restart the whole playthrough from start anyways because of a random game-breaking bug where I just fell through the floor. So not off to a great start there. The story at its best gets the job done, and at its worst does anything but. The writing is bad. It does the classic making a statement without actually making a statement thing. You know, the kind of like punk, teenage, rebel, Green Day kind of culture that just, it's like all about, you know, rebelling and all this shit, but there's no actual substance behind it. It's just like being a rebel for the sake of being a rebel. Complete with having young Barbara adopt the classic rebellious teenage girl plus nerd tech genius trope pairing. I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was a point where she said something about pwnage, which I think was the name of a data drive or something, and I could be mistaking this completely, but I kind of don't want to look it up because it would be funny if I just made all this up and convinced myself that it happened. But the point is, she's frustratingly tropey, and I'd say that that kind of sums up the whole game, really. This game doesn't use its setting as the origin of Batman, like, really at all. In fact, it totally sidelines his story and even other character stories so that it can give an unneeded origin for Joker in which it confirms the Red Hood origin of Joker, which is a big no-no. Arkham Joker, and really Joker as a whole, not having a known origin is one of the most endearing parts of his character. In fact, one of my favorite Joker moments in the entire series is the tapes in Arkham City where he starts recounting the Red Hood origin story, to which I initially got upset thinking that they were giving him an actual origin, only for them to reveal that he made the entire thing up. And then Origins comes in and ruins that by just saying, no, he was actually telling the truth that time. Here, we'll prove it. And no, I don't think there's a deeper meaning or story here. I think they just wanted to canonize an origin for him. I'll mention it more in the other Arkham game entries on this list, but I actually quite like Joker, and I can see why they keep shoving him into their games, even after he's literally dead. But I hate his inclusion in this game because it's entirely pointless. Showing how Batman was first introduced to Joker is not an inherently bad idea, but they don't justify it with a compelling narrative at all, so it just ends up feeling like they shoved him in here for the sake of having him here, which they did. I actually do like the game's environment and general art direction. I like the decision to have it be around Christmas time. The city is pretty fun to explore as well in the snowy version of Gotham, but the bosses are easily the highlight of this game. If they got one thing right, it was the bosses. Arkham Knight could take notes. Overall, I think the creators cared, they just failed, which is better than not caring. I recognize that this is now 4 beloved games in a row that I have totally shat on and stuck to the bottom of my list, so I figure I should clarify. Pretty much all the games I played this year, I enjoyed to some degree. Silksong is really the only game that I can say I had a really negative experience with, and I have like, like actual contempt towards. And even then, there's parts of that game that I really like, I just overall didn't enjoy the experience. Both this game and Voices of the Void are a case of just trying something and losing interest with it, which kind of sucks because I feel like both of these games should be right up my alley, but I just don't like either of them. Unlike Voices of the Void, however, I actually do plan on one day returning to this game. I just can't help but feel like there was something I missed here. I really think I should enjoy this game, but something just isn't clicking. I tried this out with my friends, and we all agreed on the same consensus. I'm legitimately not sure what to say for this one because I have such little understanding of what wasn't fun about the game or why we decided to drop it. One of the main reasons we said we didn't like was weapon balancing. I don't know if this was a skill issue or if we have an actual point here, but there was definitely a few cases where an enemy weapon seemed OP as fuck and our own weapons were underperforming. I also don't really like the way they make you spend points or whatever to unlock the weapons and gadgets instead of just having the whole arsenal from the start, especially when some of the weapons are priced higher than others. Kinda adds to my balancing suspicions. Matchmaking was pretty whack, first time playing as in we literally just installed the game and it pit us against some pretty high level players. So maybe that's the problem? The game is but ugly as well. The art direction is so gross and I hate looking at it. I'm not huge on the tournament sport thing they got going on either. It's not a bad idea, I guess. It's not like terrible. It's not unbearable. I don't know how I feel about it. The menu is confusing as fuck and so pumped full of cosmetics and microtransactions that it makes Fortnite look anti-capitalist. But that's all I can really pin down. Again, I will try this game again someday, but for now I just don't get it. I played the original Dishonored last year, and while it took a bit for it to grow on me, I eventually ended up loving it. I did like 3 playthroughs of the game last year, and this summer, I returned to the game. This is a dumb bit. This is a dumb bit. Cut it off. For like 4 more playthroughs, one of which was a complete ghost run where I was never detected, nor did I kill anyone. Being in a bit of a Dishonored mood, I decided to finally play the sequel, which had been sitting in my Steam account for a few months. And I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of disappointed. I'm not entirely sure why, but I was just checked the fuck out for most of the game. I was completely disinterested in the story. I didn't really feel engaged with the gameplay all that much. Nothing about the game really stood out to me as being really cool or enjoyable, and I ended up only doing 1 run of the game because I just didn't want to play it again. I did my first and only run as Corvo in Low Chaos, and I was gonna do another run as Emily, but man, I couldn't be bothered. The environments in which the missions take place are all admittedly pretty cool, and some of the new gameplay elements they introduced were interesting, but there was nothing that really hooked me to the game. Like I said, I did not care about the story the entire time. It's basically just a repeat of the first game's structure. Monarch is overthrown, and the main character has to overthrow it back and save Individual, but this time in one of the other islands of the Dishonored world, which is a sick idea, but I don't find Serkonos or any of the world building in this game to be even as close as good as it was in the first. The style of this game is just so much less interesting to me this time around. The first game had me fucking hooked on the atmosphere, and I know just doing the same thing again is what I just criticized the story for doing, but I don't know, I feel like something was lost here. I think maybe if you got to explore all 3 of the other isles besides just Serkonos, I would be more sold on the world this time around, but as it stands, I just prefer Bristol a lot more. Like I said, I played 1 run-through of the game as Corvo, so I never even saw what Emily's gameplay looks like or what her dialogue is like, but I can say that the decision to make Corvo speak in this game is genuinely one of my biggest issues with the game, and maybe why I was so checked out of it. His dialogue is just the standard game protagonist dialogue that adds nothing and it gets on my nerves every time. He was a silent protagonist in the first game. Why did they decide he needed to speak this time around? Was it just because Emily talks so they felt the need to make him talk too? Because if that's the case, then does Emily really need to speak either? I know a lot of people don't like silent protagonists for some fucking reason that I don't understand, but I am and will always be a silent protagonist voucher, and this is the reason for it. My philosophy with character dialogue, especially when it comes comes to a protagonist talking to themselves is to just shut up unless you have something to actually say. It's a writing philosophy I hold so highly that I apply it to myself in real life. And the reason for that is literally just because I don't talk unless I have something to say. Corvo needs to be taking notes because there is no reason he needs to be talking to himself constantly when he's trying to sneak around quietly. If they just needed him to speak for dialogue with other characters, then I wouldn't have a problem with it, but why do writers keep thinking I need to know the character's inner dialogue when no other characters are present? Just shut up, man. I once heard someone say that most silent protagonists wouldn't lose anything if they started talking, and I don't disagree with that, but I also think the opposite is also true. A lot of protagonists that do talk wouldn't lose anything if they didn't. The cherry on top of all of this is that the final boss is ass. I don't have anything else to add, I just really hated that fight. I used to love Deltarune and Undertale when I was younger. Back then I was also staunchly against piracy, defended Nintendo and other such things profusely, and I used Reddit a lot, so things have changed quite a bit. And when Deltarune Chapter 3 and 4 came out, I was terrified that I just wouldn't care about the game at all. I know Reddit is a term that is used a lot, but the only reason that's the case is because it's such an effective way to describe something negatively, and there are so many cases of it, so you have to forgive me for saying this, but Undertale and Deltarune are very Reddit games. The community is comprised of so many of those kinds of people. If you've ever had any experience with them, you know exactly what I mean. Looking back at Undertale, there was a very distinct kind of humor and writing that has not aged well, and overall I just didn't think I'd like it anymore. When Chapter 2 came out in 2021, my 14-year-old mind was fucking blown. And I still distinctly remember discussing the ending with friends and going down the Snowgrave route. It was awesome. But again, that was 14-year-old me, and I do not like 14-year-old me. So I was kind of ready to check out, but I was wrong. Kinda. I was wrong about thinking that the humor and characters would be lost on me. Replaying Chapter 1 and 2, I was a little surprised at how much I still liked the game. It turns out that the game being very popular with the demon pions of Beelzebub had nothing to do with its quality or how enjoyable it would be, which is a lesson I probably should have learned by this point. Unfortunately, however, expecting to be unengaged in Chapter 3 was actually the right call. I just had the wrong reason. This is pretty easily the weakest of the 4 chapters. None of the character progression is all that interesting. The story of the game kind of takes a back seat for the entirety of the chapter. It starts out kind of just brushing the insane ending of the last chapter under the rug so that it can get on with the main chapter progression, which is way less interesting. Additionally, it seems like Toby wanted to do the Dark World reveal, but couldn't fit it into the chapter, so he just put it at the start. The gameplay itself is lame as shit, too. Rather than getting to play Deltarune, the game you wanted to play, they decided that the time is now to have you beat a shitty Zelda clone instead. This would be a fine bit if it didn't take up like 70% of the chapter, but my least favorite part of the chapter is the secrets. To get the Shadow Crystal, something that has been relatively attainable for the 2 chapters leading up to this, and the chapter after it, you'll have to fight through 2 bosses, both of which are annoying as all hell. The first one's just ass. It's just a stupid fight. It's a boss within the shitty Zelda clone played in this chapter, and it's just super irritating to fight. Not particularly difficult, just irritating. And the second one, the one that gets you the Shadow Crystal, is just draining. When I think about it, I guess there's nothing particularly wrong about the Knight's fight. It's just such a huge gap in difficulty between the last fight and then this fight. Oh, actually, you know what? This is completely off script. There is a problem with the Knight fight that I remember. There were certain things that were like almost entirely like RNG based as to whether you get hit or not. And getting hit is like a big deal in this fight because he just downs one of your teammates or both of your teammates completely. And I could be mistaking this, but I think it was like there was a small chance that there was nothing you could do, but there was a chance that there was nothing you could do, and it had something to do with the way the patterns were. I don't know. You can fact check me in the comments. I want to make it clear now because I'm sure by the Silksong entry I have already made at least a few people think that I'm a dumb fucking chud that can't handle difficulty in video games, and I want to say now that I am not. The chuds are the one advocating for the difficulty, but I have no issue with difficulty in games when it feels good. Difficulty is a very easy thing to fuck up if you don't do it right, and how difficult something should be is dependent on the rest of the game up to that point. That being said, I get easily frustrated at games, and when I feel I was not properly prepared for the difficulty of a part of a game, I, in simple terms, lose my shit. I play a lot of video games. It's probably the hobby I've spent the most time on. but even I do not have the time or energy to get through some of these newer games because of what they demand from the player. This is made so much worse because the aforementioned chuds that do have the time and do have the energy, because it's all they do all day, they're so loudly dictating how balancing and difficulty should be done and have absolutely no regard or respect for anyone that plays, not even casually, but anywhere below mega unemployed sweatlord. This is one of the reasons I want to make a dildo, oh my god. This is one of the reasons I want to make a dedicated Silksong video to talk about this in more depth, but I bring it up here because I want to just halt you all and tell you to listen to me when I say this. I should not have to get good. That is to say, I should not have to halt my gameplay experience midway through a game just so I can catch up with the game because it decided to throw a challenge or difficulty spike at me that isn't conducive to the gameplay up to that point. A good challenge tests the player and requires them to master the skills they have been given, rather than force the player to keep up with inconsistencies in its own design. This is the issue with difficulty spikes, and Deltarune's difficulty spike is really insane on this boss. You go from Spamton Neo in Chapter 2, a challenging boss, but not one that the average casual player can't overcome, to one that feels like it was meant as a challenge boss for the best of players rather than a challenge on the path of a previously obtainable side quest. This would be fine if it wasn't for the fact that it was on said side quest. I've heard you're not supposed to beat it, but if that were the case, why are you rewarded with a story item for the, again, previously obtainable side quest throughout the games? That's still bad game design. It's just a really unnatural jump in difficulty from pretty much everything else in the game thus far. Hell, even in Chapter 4, there's nothing that really gets close to the difficulty of this boss. It frustrated the shit out of me, and it's one of the many issues I have with this chapter. That being said, I still overall enjoyed myself. It might seem like I didn't, but it's here on my list for a reason. I know I seem very critical of all the games here, and that's because I am a very critical person. I focus on negative attributes and things I like because I want the games I play to be as good as they can be, and criticism is important to do that, a fact which seems to be lost on a lot of people. In a time where positivity and constructive criticism is flaunted so much and practiced so little, having someone just tell you what your problem is outright is a rare occurrence, and one that gets a lot of negative reaction from people. Hell, I'm guilty of it myself, but it's important, and that's why it's something I feel the need to do when I find something I could like a lot more. That was probably too much for this entry. Anyway. I'll be real with y'all right now, this game probably would have been a lot closer to the bottom if it wasn't so goddamn charming. The gameplay loop sucks, it's just various rooms where they throw enemies at you until you kill them all, separated by parkour segments that aren't very engaging. The environments in this game are interesting, they're unique and cool to look at for a bit, but there was nothing that was all that memorable about any of it, especially when the first game had all these cool set pieces and areas that were really memorable. Speaking of the first game, it was significantly better than this one. The gameplay was more driven and felt like you had a proper objective rather than just enemy room, parkour, enemy room, and the story was way more intertwined with the gameplay and the environment as well. So this is a really negative review of a game, yet I put it above Silksong, Voices of the Void, The Finals, and Dishonored 2. Why? Because despite its glaring flaws, I really enjoyed myself. Hell, I wanted to put it higher, but kept myself from doing so because I knew it was so flawed. But I can't help it, man. I was smiling my ass off through this game. I see a lot of you scratching your heads with this entry. It's not the most well-known game ever, and I'd be surprised if anyone who's watching this has ever played any of the games in the series. I haven't really introduced any of these games for anyone who doesn't already know about them, and I don't intend to for other entries after this, but because some of the appeal of this game to me is fringed on the context regarding the franchise, I'll briefly go over the game's history. Shadow Warrior was a 90s boomer shooter very similar to Doom that used Asian culture as its theme. I say just broadly Asian because that's what it was. It was a pretty racist game that mocked East Asian culture more than anything, and it didn't really make too much of a splash in the boomer shooter era, at least to my knowledge. I'll admit, I find the racism kind of funny, but that's really all it has going for it, which is worse than nothing. But that's not what's important. What's important is that it got rebooted in 2013 as a modern Doom-style shooter, and this is before Doom even even got rebooted themselves, so they were kind of ahead of the game for this one. I really enjoyed the first game. It was just a fun shooter with a lot of cool settings and pretty endearing characters, which I find to be a rare delicacy in a lot of recent games. And I was excited to play the other two, but I skipped the second because from what I understand, it went for a pretty ass gameplay loop changeup that I'm pretty sure I would have hated if I played it. It has its fans, but it got pretty heavily criticized, and a lot of the appeal of the first game seems to have been missing. So when the third installment released in 2022, it was sort of a return to form for the appeal of the first game. The story of the game is not going to swoon over anyone who didn't really care for the characters of the first game, or the story in general, and if you don't care about that, then there's really not much else for you here, but I did enjoy the characters in the first game, and I really liked the juvenile banter between Lo Wang, yes that's the protagonist's name, and Hoji. They have such a stupid bromance dynamic that I find utterly endearing, and I overall just can't help but enjoy the way the game builds on Lo Wang's ability to take anything or anyone with any ounce of seriousness or respect, even when it's to his own detriment. There was clearly a lot of love put into this game, and I can't hate that. It may not be the most innovative arena shooter, and for that it's gonna sit down here, but it knows it has my heart, and that's all it needs. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record pulling the same I played entry in series last year, so this year I played other entry in series intro, but I played Hitman World of Assassination last year, and I was honestly pretty interested to go back and look at some of the older games in the series. I ended up playing through only 2 of them, with this being the lesser in my opinion. A lot of people seem to think that this is the only Hitman game worth a shit behind the reboots, or at least that this is the only one on par with the reboot trilogy, and I have to disagree. First of all, none of the old Hitman games are on par with the reboot trilogy. None of them. It's not even really close. The reboot trilogy has a level of polish and consistency that I find every other Hitman game lacks. There's just something so unstable about the other games, including this one, like a building held together with Elmer's glue. And even in that range, I don't think this is the best one either. I'll save that conversation for that entry though. For starters, the selection of missions is great. A mission where you have to kill an actor during his performance, a mission in an upper-class suburban neighborhood where you have to take out a protected person during a party, a mission taking place during a big parade where your targets are trying to assassinate a politician and you have to take them out before they do it, a mission on a riverboat going down the Mississippi. In terms of missions, it absolutely is on par with the reboot trilogy. The game also gives quite a bit of freedom with how you move around the map. It's really easy for stealth games to get really tight with how they want you to play them, and I think that some of the other Hitman games can restrict your abilities a little too much. That being said, there is a way to complete all the levels that it very clearly wants you to follow, but it's too afraid of tunneling the player into a linear experience to give you enough direction as to how to apply the tools and options it gives you that I found myself getting pretty easily confused. This is particularly a problem in the parade level, where I just ended up getting really frustrated with the level design and couldn't figure out what the game was trying to get me to do. And despite what I said earlier, the missions often get pretty confusing and restrictive in certain areas, which further adds to the idea that it wants you to complete it its way, but is trying to convince you that it's an open-ended question. This is actually another problem that I think all the older Hitman games have, where the level design, mechanics, and just general game design aren't consistent and often work against the player in really annoying ways. It's not too bad, but it definitely doesn't help the experience, and I found that Blood Money at its best can be pretty fun, but at its worst can be frustrating and kind of boring, and it's at its worst more often than it's at its best for me personally. This was the other Hitman game I played this year, and the one that I felt like I enjoyed more than Blood Money, which may not be a very popular opinion. Then again, popular opinions haven't exactly been all that present on this list so far. While writing this script, I found it kinda hard to justify why I liked this one more than Blood Money. In terms of flaws, everything I said about Blood Money can be applied here, in some cases possibly more so. And on top of that, it's got its own fair share of flaws itself. For one, the mission pool of the game isn't great. Half the missions in this game are just remakes of some of the first Hitman game's missions, most of which take place on the same Hong Kong map. This game has a pretty major fall-off point at Rotterdam, with a brief intermission of quality in Budapest, but the first 4 missions plus Budapest are all pretty solid. But what I love about this game doesn't really come in the form of the actual pure gameplay necessarily. This game might have more flaws than Blood Money, but what it has over Blood Money is a proper reason to ignore them. And boy does this game have a reason. The vibe and atmosphere of this game is unmatched. The only games I can think of that capture captured a similar aesthetic are SWAT 4 and Ready or Not, which even then, I don't think even do it in the same way that this game does. This is a dark-ass game, both in atmosphere and environment. Every single mission in this game takes place during a rainy night, with the only kind of exception being in the form of snow instead of rain. This actually ties into the story, which, let me tell you, is pretty fucking cool. The game follows Agent 47 after getting shot on a mission, stumbling into his apartment and fading in and out of consciousness while bleeding out. Each mission is his memory of his past work, meaning that all of the playable parts of this game, with the exception of the last mission, are simply Agent 47 remembering something that's already happened. And all the missions take place on a rainy night, because in the present, it's raining at night. The dark atmosphere is like crack to me, I can't get enough of it. But I initially battled with it, justifying my entire decision to put it above Blood Money when pretty much everything I complained about with Blood Money is present here. But I don't know, man, I just enjoyed Contracts more. I had more fun playing it. Yeah. I'd honestly think that remakes of these games would be fire. As long as they maintain the atmosphere for this one, I'd love to see these missions in the more refined and polished Hitman style. And speaking of games I think would be good to be remade, I'm honestly not sure how to feel about this game. On one hand, I like John and I like his story. The journey of a man haunted by his past, trying to save his new one by diving back into his old one is done pretty well here. And John is a kind of weirdly relatable but also admirable, until he's not, character for me. He's my favorite character in both Red Dead games, and his constant grumpy look, hostile attitude to those that get on his nerves, and general anger issues just reminds me a lot of myself. On the other hand, both the gameplay and the story suffer from a problem that I have coined, can we get the fuck on with it itis. Half of this game is just John doing irritating tasks for unreliable people over and over in hopes that maybe he'll get the information he's looking for and finally be able to progress the fucking story. The characters he meets and events he finds himself in are interesting enough. It's still a more enjoyable story than most games, scratch that most entertainment made in the last 5, scratch that 15 years, but I was sitting here this whole time just waiting for John to finally break and kill one of these motherfuckers. Except Seth. I find Seth hilarious. His moral values also get called into question quite a bit, which plays into the themes and his character, but there was certainly some points where I was like, okay, my man should not be okay with this, specifically in regards to a certain Mexican revolution. Speaking of Mexico, it's pretty easily the worst part of the game. Landon Ricketts is cool and I like his character, but good lord, man, it not only feels out of character for John to be hopping between a revolution led by a leader who is very clearly no better than the people he's overthrowing and aforementioned people in the form of a Mexican army that tasks John with killing innocent people, burning down their homes, and kidnapping the women for government-sanctioned rape. But it feels out of character for me to play as that guy. I am usually never bothered by the actions of a video game character in the sense that I don't feel comfortable controlling them, but in this case, maybe because I like John and I relate to him so much, I just did not want to do any of these missions. And I mean that in story context and in gameplay, because God knows I didn't want to play through these same fucking missions anymore. The game thankfully has its best moments in the third section, where the fetch quests stop and the actual core story of the game and John Marston as a character takes center stage. The gameplay is still pretty repetitive and boring, but at least it's for missions that are actually connected to John. One of the things that makes John such a compelling character to me, aside from what I already mentioned, is that unlike a lot of other characters and a lot of other stories, John is a fucking smart dude. Flawed, but smart. It feels natural and consistent with who he is as a person to see him interact with other characters, and his issues are not annoyingly obtuse or infuriating to see in action, but rather add further depth to his character and aid in telling his story. This is what good writing looks like, and I'd very much like it if more writers were good at their job. And like I opened with, yeah, I think this would be a good choice for a remake. If this game was more aligned with the gameplay of Red Dead Redemption 2, I think it would be a masterpiece, and having it be remade in the context of Red Dead 2 would open up some really cool opportunities. Oh, and I played Undead Nightmares. It was fine. My opinions on its gameplay are similar to my opinion on the base games. I'll be honest with y'all, I barely remember this one. I remember bits and pieces of the game and the broader strokes, but I had to actually think for a second to remember the story beats and enemies and whatnot. I spent so much time in Chapter 3 playing through it and then restarting to get S rank and then playing through it again to try and keep a consistent Snowgrave route, which I didn't finish. And in comparison, I only played Chapter 4 one time through, and I really don't know what the hell my opinion is on it. I think Chapter 3 just drained me too much to actually properly enjoy this game as much as I could have, and
and probably should've. Needless to say, I need to replay this one. All that said, this is definitely a step up from the issues of Chapter 3. For one, I like that the story is finally relevant to the actual overarching story instead of being mostly a trip into a random and mostly unimportant part of the characters. In fact, it does this very well, whereas Chapter 3 is mostly just a bridge for the events at the end of Chapter 2 and the start of Chapter 4 with some key plot points sprinkled in at the beginning and end without seemingly any connection to what's actually happening. This chapter gets pretty much immediately into the sauce of the game, and throughout the whole thing is pretty much entirely based on the core story. I really like the initiative to drive the story forward and not flounder around with meaningless fluff, and I appreciate the gesture to make up for how little of it there was in the previous part of the game. That being said, I think it goes too much into just telling the overarching story, because there's so much making up for the lack of plot progression in 3. I feel like it really shunned the usual world building of the new Dark World, and this is a real shame because I am way more invested in this Dark World than Tenna's, but we really don't get any of it. Even the usual humor and wackiness felt watered down to make room for the plot, and that's maybe why it was such a haze of an experience for me. I'm a big fan of the focus on Susie as a character. For one of the main 3 heroes, it really does feel like her and her story are paramount by other characters. They did her arc in the first chapter, and then for the next 2 just let her kind of sit on the sidelines. Rouse is the party's emotional vent. Noelle almost always takes the spotlight for their romantic relationship. Hell, even her relationship with Chris is more leaned on Chris's character than hers. And Chris doesn't even speak. We got a taste of her background at the end of Chapter 2, so it's appreciated to see her finally get some uncontested stage time for once since the first chapter, especially because she's probably my favorite character besides maybe Lancer, I suppose. And I'd much rather hear about her struggles than have Rouse vent about his stupid chud problems again. I'll be real, I still think this chapter is weaker than the first 2, and yeah, that's probably the nostalgia talking, but I still liked this even if I had trouble remembering it. This is a deep cut right here, and I'm going to get this entry out of the way as fast as possible because that's really what the game is all about, both in gameplay and runtime. I Am Your Beast is a very fun game. There's not really much else to say in this regard. The story is cool enough, it serves its purpose, it does a good job at it, but there's nothing that's going to really make you start praising the game's writing or anything, even if it tries to convince both you and itself that the story is captivating at all, only to then pull back and fear that people will care too much about the death of the guy. And yeah, I'm spoiling that because it's stupid. It's a stupid mission with a stupid character that I don't care about. The gunplay is inconsistent and it really bothered me while playing it. Most of the time it works, you aim at thing and it will hit thing, but sometimes it just janked out and fucked up and it got on my nerves so badly. I have to say this right now because as of writing the script, I'm currently playing Fallout 3, and as of recording, I'm currently playing Fallout New Vegas. But stop doing this fucking shit where the gun just doesn't work. If I have my crosshairs on a motherfucker, it better hit the motherfucker. It feels so ass in every case, and it's one of the reasons I've never liked Counter-Strike. Don't look at my hours. Again, it works in this game most of the time, but there are times. The level design at its best feels like an art form, like you're moving through a very particular dance to find the perfect flow of movement to get you at the end as soon as possible. At its worst, it feels like getting your leg smashed in and having to crawl to the end of a room, and I'm not even talking about the levels where you literally have your leg smashed in and have to crawl to the end of the room. Some levels are masterfully woven to perfection, but others just kind of have you running up a mountain with 2 snipers on your ass the whole way. Challenges are also really dumb. There's not a single challenge in the game that made me feel like I was really playing the level in a different and more creative way. All of them are just do what you did before, but heavily restrict yourself and ruin the flow of gameplay. The art style is really cool. It's not often you see a game adopt a truly original look that isn't, butt fuck ugly. Overall, I liked the game, or what game there was at least, and I hope that if it ever gets more content, it'll be unique and innovative and not a helicopter boss battle. I'm gonna say now what I have denied to myself for far too long. I'm not a Halo guy. There, I said it. It's out there now. I have tried to force myself to like Halo for years. I have played through the first game at least 3 times, each time trying to binge through the entire series, and each time stopping before I complete Halo 2. And yeah, I didn't play Halo 2 for the first time in 2025. I first booted up the game maybe back in 2018 when I got the Master Chief Collection for my Xbox. But I never got that far into the game until this year, where I played through it and beat the entire thing. Most of the criticisms I could think for this game just come down to me not personally enjoying them in my humblest of opinions. It really is a simple case of it's just not for me. I can see the appeal, I just personally wasn't a part of it. This might seem like a very odd thing for me to say about a game that I liked enough to put it one spot away from the top 10 on a list I described myself as having almost entirely games I enjoyed to some degree, but you have to understand that people love this game. This should have been a topper, but like I said, I'm just not a Halo guy. I don't even really know what to say about the game. It was good, but not the fantastic experience everyone hypes it up to be. I can see why people would consider it such, but I just didn't like it that much. I guess I'll say that this game has some bangers that will play at certain points, and it's pretty fucking awesome when they do. Follow in Flight and Breaking the Covenant specifically are the ones I'm referring to. I know people don't like the phrase they didn't have to go this hard, because yes they do, it's their job. But oh my god, they had no reason to go this hard. So yeah, that's my Halo 2 opinions, anyway. We're in the top 10 now, starting with another Arkham game. Out of the 3 Rocksteady Arkham games, this is, in my opinion, the weakest. It's clear that there was a different vision in mind for the series and something changed because, good lord, is this one different from the others. The city layout, some of the characters' looks, the story, so much of the game is just alien to the other 4. This isn't a criticism, necessarily, I just wanted to point it out because it was the most jarring thing when I started it. I do have quite a few criticisms, though. The game, I find, delivers hard on what it does right and severely underwhelms the stuff they didn't give as much attention to. Graphically, beautiful. Every corner of this city was thoughtfully crafted to look nothing less than stunning. There's a reason this game is so often used in comparisons to modern games. This shit came out nearly 11 years ago now, and it looks better than 95% of the games we're getting now. The reason for this is because it doesn't hinge on pure graphical power to look impressive. It has an actual art style. I hate it when people do the whole realism is lame actually thing, because in most cases, they just want, like, pixel art or low poly PS1 style games and miss the point completely. This game shows that realistic graphics are not the problem, it's a lack of art direction, or any attempt to make it look actually good. Low poly graphics can be, and in modern cases usually are, just as boring and uninspired as realism. The thing that makes games look good is the way you present it, and this is a masterclass in this regard. And you'll see a lot of these graphics as you drive around all the time, which is like half the gameplay. I actually don't mind the Batmobile, I think it's fun, and it never felt like it was impeding on what I wanted to do, but good lord, I can see why people might feel different. Having the Batmobile isn't the problem at all. It's a cool addition to the game for sure, but the amount of fucking times they require you to use the Batmobile got me, forgetting I was playing Batman and not fucking Mater's Tall Tales. Mater's Tall Tales feels less vehicle heavy. The story, which is pretty heavily focused on in the game, is honestly pretty good. I don't know how other people feel about it, but I really liked it. Scarecrow is really cool. The focus on Batman's relationship with Gordon and the police force is given a pretty good spotlight, and I like it. The progression of the actual game during the story feels good. Dare I say I enjoyed the Joker's inclusion, even if it definitely was shoehorned in to cash out on his popularity. But the side quests took a total backseat to the main missions, so much so that I actually can barely even remember them. They were all just doing the same task a certain amount of times until it paramounted in something. Usually nothing worth the quest. If there was one thing Origins did right, it was the boss fights, and I cannot say the same for this game. Every boss is so fucking lame, it's unreal. They at least try with some of them, but with others they don't even do that much. This is the most common complaint I've heard for the game, and I guess it's just because the series set a standard for having good boss fights up until this point. Well, so to have the penultimate game of the series not have a single good boss fight is a pretty big letdown. Overall, I liked it though. Its flaws, though plentiful, didn't bother me too much, and I mean, yeah, it's kinda hard for you to make a Batman game that I'm not gonna like. It's fucking Batman. Unless you're Origins, I guess, but even then.
Where are you?
Oh my god, this guy's a Silksong fan. No fucking way. I tortured you, and it made you more blessed in life. You should be grateful.
9 Souls ending up at number 9 wasn't intentional, by the way. That was a complete coincidence. This game was my coping mechanism for getting severely disappointed by Silksong, and it did its job decently, actually. I played through the game on the story difficulty, because I thought that meant normal difficulty, and I only died like 3 times, once on the siblings fight, and twice on the final boss, and I thought I was like really good, because everyone was saying this is a hard game, but I think the story difficulty might just be the easy mode, and I was playing on the easy mode the whole time. So my first complaint is gonna be that I wish they made it clearer what the difficulties actually were instead of being, you know, different, because it hurt my ego. This is a heavily story-based game, so I'm basing most of my criticisms on the story and the characters and the writing. That, and all I really have to say about the gameplay is that it did its job. It was fun. I had a good time with it, and that's about it. The Jades were fucking useless, though. There were maybe 3 Jades that were actually good for anything, and I just kept those on the whole game. The actual story was fine, I guess. It was interesting enough to make me care about it at least, but it didn't really draw me in the way I feel like it was supposed to. This is the kind of story that expects you to get real invested in it, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just didn't get as invested as it wanted me to. The characters are the same way. I found the main character Yi to be insufferable, I won't lie. He's here talking to a village of people that were swiftly taken from their peaceful lives and revealed to have been in a meat farm for alien gods, essentially, and this dude says, "Why would there be pain in the world if God was real? LMAO, dumb villagers." Like, my gamer, you are the god! You are living proof that there's something more beyond the veil of understanding. Why are you reciting Reddit atheism? You are literally an alien deity! The themes of the game didn't really stick with me either. Even after having finished it, I still struggled to figure out what exactly the game was trying to say. It felt like it was going one way, and then it turned around and went the other way, and then it went back to the first way, and it was just messy and confusing. The ending was ass. I'm sorry. I didn't like it. Cryptic endings just suck when you don't properly set them up, and this game didn't really set its ending up at all. I remember finishing the game and just going, huh. I cannot imagine being actually fully invested in the story and having it end like this. I'd be so pissed. Despite all that, I actually did like the game quite a bit. It wasn't anything that'll really stick with me, but it did its job, and that's the best way I can describe it. What a bunch of goofballs, huh?
Please die. Just die, just tank it. Please just tank it. Please just tank this shit.
Why are you still going? Delete the block! I got very addicted to this game in the last month of 2025, and I originally had it higher, but I fell out of the honeymoon phase of the game pretty harshly. Mostly because this game gets less enjoyable the further you progress through it. One reason for this is because the game doesn't scale in difficulty as much as it scales in obnoxiousness.
Dude, if you do that again, I'm gonna punch you. I'm not kidding.
The third area is the most obvious offender of this, but the fourth area definitely has its issues too. The enemies in the third area are all designed to just overwhelm the player in really annoying ways. Like these spiked enemies that kind of just spray you if you don't slime them fast enough, or these fuckers who just throw shit at you, or their bigger fucker counterparts that just do the stupidest shit. The environment encourages you to be thoughtful and careful about how you go about it, which I actually think is a pretty smart way to make things more difficult in a game like this, but the execution didn't really work, so it's less challenging and more irritating. And then there's the 2 boss fights of the area. I'm gonna say it, fuck the adventurers. Fuck the adventurers so hard. They start you off with one of them, all of which are easy as shit, and then they make you fight 2, which depending on which 2 you can get, can range from still easy as shit to fuck off. But 3 of them is just excessive. You can tell they were designed with the idea of having you fight multiple at once in mind, except for one of them. But it just doesn't work. There's too much to watch on my screen. With 2, I can keep track of them at the same time, but in most combinations of 3, it's just not reasonable to be reading the moves of all of them at once. And that's assuming you can even actually see what they're doing, because yeah, sometimes the visuals just block out their cues even, like, on top of that. And their final fights are all piss too. The Chimera is the other boss, and I actually slimed this thing on my first 2 tries because I was just brute forcing my way through and then started dying to it when I actually tried to be smart about how I fought it. What? Why? Why? Oh my god! I hate this game! But the thing is, you're supposed to brute force through it. Using your brain puts you at a disadvantage. And that's what I mean. A lot of these don't challenge your skills or abilities, they kinda just pressure test you. And this means power skulls, while really good in the early game, struggle a lot more in the late game.
If I die to this, I'm gonna be so mad. Thank you, fucking hell. I think a third phase is a bit much. I really do not think there should be a third phase for that. That is a lot, especially after the first two phases, like how obnoxious those are. There should not be a third one. That's just too much. It was easy, I'll give them that. The third phase was easy, but it just feels unnecessary. It feels real unnecessary. I don't know about that one.
The other reason for why the game gets worse as you progress is that there really isn't much to progress in. After you get all the Dark Quartz upgrades, you're just done. There's nothing more to progress in, and this is where you'll start to realize that almost everything in this game is entirely luck-based. Seriously, almost nothing is consistent in a run. Not even whether or not you'll get health after the Adventurer's boss fight is guaranteed.
And that's all you give me! That's all you give me to get through the entire rest of it!
I get that it's a roguelike and it needs to keep the game as fresh and replayable as possible, but it doesn't really feel fresh to me as much as it does as. Especially the upgrade system for the skulls. I don't know. I still haven't gotten a chance to see the final form of every skull. Hell, I still haven't even seen the base state of a couple of them. Nor have I played through the Dark Mirror mode, so I still plan on playing this game some more, but I just found myself getting really aggravated by some of the things holding it down. That being said, still a really fun game. I wouldn't have put so many hours in if it wasn't. Well, actually, that's just a fat lie. Never mind.
See, that's not part of the hitbox. Lying to me, basically. Yeah, this guy's really booty buns. I don't want to have to fight with that. Oh god. What the fuck was that? Sweet. I was actually recording that, yes.
What do you mean you weren't recording that?
I was!
I really wish I could just play fighting games, but holy hell are they hard as shit to learn. In all fairness, starting with this game was probably not a good idea, but fuck it. It got Spider-Man and Nemesis, and I can play both at the same time. That's like a bodacious sundae covered in an epic layer of awesome sauce. I have literally no merit to be criticizing this game. I can barely tell what the fuck is going on. How could I say what does or doesn't work? So I'm just gonna give you my gang and move on. Okay, team one, we got the badasses. Frank West, first and foremost, my personal goat. Then we got Ghost Rider on speed dial, and my man Dante coming in for some of that too. Team two, we got the freaks. X23 coming out at face value, and I mean, what can I say? She can kind of get it. Then we got Nemesis out here for some tank action, and boy does he fuck. And last but not least, we got my other personal goat fighting for my favorite character slot with Frank Shumagorath, the spaghetti monster himself. Finally, we got Team 3 for my switch-up picks, and switch-up I certainly do. Front spot, we got Deadpool or Spider-Man, the two red-suited fuckers coming right out to bat. Then we got ourselves the man himself, Wesker, coming in for some booty, and sometimes I replace him with Magneto, but not often. And finally, we got a bit of an unexpected pick for me personally, Morrigan, who surprised the fuck out of me with how good she is, because I did not think I'd like her very much, and I don't really switch her out ever, because she's my goddamn cleanup crew. And final girl, honorable mention, Iron Man. Anyway, Hotline Miami. I actually played the second game last year before I played this one. I don't know why. I just decided to play that one first. After playing this one and then replaying the second one, I'll be real, I like the second game more. It's ironic, seeing as the developers made the second game as a spite piece so that people would stop asking them for a second game, but it expanded on the story and themes so much more than the first game ever did, and while the level design on the second game is, in more than a couple cases, ass, the variety of the gameplay made me enjoy it quite a bit more than the first. But hey, this entry is about the first game, not the second, so I'll put aside the comparisons to its sequel for the rest of the entry. This is a cool ass game. The gameplay is sick, the themes are sick, the way its identity and purpose are presented is sick. It's also sick in more ways than one. Ooh, whoa, whoa. I love the way the game manipulates your brain with all the colors, music, the points, only for it to cut it all at the end of the level and just leave you with what you've done. This is what art looks like. We talk about art up and down, arguing about what art is and trying to turn everything into an art form, but goddamn if I don't know for a fact that this game is a work of beauty. My only major complaint about the game that I can actually remember having is that it's too short. So if my only issue is that I didn't get enough of it, that should tell you something. And when this is only number 6 on my list, that means we've got some bangers coming up here. In the opposite situation to Halo, I've always avoided COD. I don't know exactly why, I just never wanted to play these games. Maybe it's just that as a kid I always had this negative connotation with COD from it being the baseline, don't let your kids play this game. And I always was just like, well, if it's bad, then I'm not gonna play it, because I'm a good kid, while I opened up Phantom Forces. But whatever it was, I hadn't played a single COD game until now, and holy shit, I was missing out. The gunplay is awesome, the story is fantastic, the set pieces are all epic as fuck. I got way more attached to the characters than I have in a lot of games that put way more emphasis on them than this game does. I loved this fucking game. This shit was just fantastic all around, and I really don't have any complaints that I can remember, other than in the mission where you're running back through the town you cleared up earlier. I feel like that one was a little bit frustrating at times, but it was still fun. I do think the missions tend to blend together a little bit, to the point where I really couldn't remember much of them, and that's really the main reason I didn't put it higher. As much as I loved it, I would be lying to say the whole thing stuck with me and the gameplay stayed fresh and unique for the entire game. That being said, loved this game, and now I'm gonna proceed it with a weird ass pick. I fought myself quite a bit on whether I was really about to spend all that time glazing Hotline Miami and Modern Warfare only to stick this pretty niche and arguably incomplete roguelike horror RPG above both of them, but fuck it. I both fully expected to like this game and did not expect to at all. Thematically, it's right up my alley. I love horror, and more specifically, I love it when Junji Ito does it, so of course I was gonna love this game. On the gameplay side, though, I thought I would not like this game at all. I used to think I didn't like roguelike games. I don't know why. I guess maybe just because I don't like repetition in general. It gets on my nerves. But between this and Skul, I think it's safe to say that I was wrong in that assumption. What I know I don't like, though, are turn-based RPGs. RPGs in general, I tend to be pretty apprehensive towards, and I can't pin down a specific reason why, but I do know that specifically the turn-based variant bores the ever-loving fuck out of me. But despite that, I gave this game a try and ended up finding it to be really fun. It's not so much of an RPG as it is a management game. You have to keep track of so many stats and items and what you have and what you might have to get rid of, and what kind of lizard could tunnel through a dragon fruit the quickest. My bet is on the horny lizard, my goat. It's incredibly stressful, but in a good way. And let me tell you, this game does not go easy on you. What I said about Skul being very luck-based regarding how well you'll do in a run can admittedly be said here as well, but I'm more inclined to forgive it here due to the fact that you will have reliable and consistent ways to recover from whatever bullshit it might throw at you. It's pretty rare to lose a run entirely because of RNG, outside of the combat at least. Usually you could have done something to save it, but I will admit that RNG can get pretty horse shit at times. The combat is something I am inclined to forgive a lot less, however. It gives off the illusion of giving you a lot of options at your disposal, but in reality, it's mostly dodging and hitting over and over until you kill the enemy. And the dodging is a 50-50 chance, so it's not uncommon to get screwed over by RNG in a fight. There's a lot of content to experience in this game as it is, but there is a lot of stuff that's just completely missing. A lot of people have criticized this game for being unfinished, which I don't agree with. You can play it, there's a lot to do, it works, it's a finished game. But I will acknowledge that there's a lot of stuff in this game that just doesn't do anything or go anywhere. Like these tapes that you can grab at the end of the found footage mystery. It says they're broken and need to be fixed somewhere, so I decided to go looking around for anywhere to possibly fix the tapes, and after looking everywhere and coming up with nothing, I threw in the towel and looked it up. They can't be fixed. There's just nothing you can do in the game to fix them. It's clear that the developers wanted to include a cool little side thing you can do, but never made it, and so now there's just this message here to send you on a path that doesn't exist. The game is still getting content, so I'm not gonna rip it too much for this, especially because the developer of this game is a Polish dentist making the game in his free time, which is an incredible hustle. The only other thing I want to say about this game is that the artwork is just
beautiful. I heard somewhere that the developer did all of it in MS Paint, which I don't know if I believe, but in any case, this is an incredible amount of artistic talent, especially regarding people. He really captured the essence of Junji Ito in making humans look really good. His characters got me acting up a little bit. What's up with that? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I really like this game. It's definitely not going to be for everyone, but I've come back to it multiple times now, which is more than I can say for a lot of other games. There's supposed to be a big content update coming out soon, and I'm super hyped for it. Everything good I said about Modern Warfare 1 can be applied here. Hell, some of it's even better here. This is literally just a direct improvement on the first game. You wouldn't think that it would be very hard to make the sequel of a game as good or even better than the original, but time and time again we see studios fuck it up. This is how you fucking do it. The story in this game is even more captivating than the first. We should all be familiar with the big beats of the story, and those were all fucking incredible, but even the smaller beats are so well done. Remember how I said the first game's missions tend to blend together into one muddy recollection of them without being able to distinguish them from each other? In this game, absolutely not. You're in a desert, in the snow, you're infiltrating an oil rig, you're chasing a dude through a South American village while getting ambushed at every turn. Y'all remember Burger Town? Of course you remember Burger Town. Who could forget Burger Town? Every mission is so fucking memorable and awesome. It's just banger after banger after banger. The only mission I didn't really like as much was that South American one, just because it got really annoying to be ambushed and killed constantly. But I don't even care, because it was awesome when I jumped into that helicopter. I don't want to spoil the ending of this game for anyone who hasn't gotten around to playing it yet, but holy shit, it's incredible. I highly encourage anyone who hasn't played these games to get around to it already, because trust me, you're missing out. I haven't myself got around to playing the third game yet, so there's still one entry in this series for me to dig into. I doubt it will top this game, but even if it does get close, it'll still be an unforgettable experience. 10 out of 10 would defend the Burger Town again. At the end of the day, for as awesome as Modern Warfare 2 is, it's not topping Batman. I fucking love Batman. I've loved Batman since I was a baby, and I have never grown out of it. I had that Batman playset with the Batcave. Anyone else had that? I remember it being the shit in preschool. What was I talking about? Oh yeah. This game is everything I could ever want from a Batman game. It's got a large gallery of villains included, a solid interpretation of all of them, a great interpretation of Batman himself. It's got an extremely solid story. It's got Gordon, Robin, Catwoman. It's got a fantastic Gotham City. I really just think that this is the peak of superhero games. Spider-Man PS4 fucking who? I was sick as a fucking dog during my playthrough of this game, and I have incredibly vivid memories of going through Gotham while I felt like dying, but I held on for Batman. I liked this game so much that after I finished it, I played through every DLC, did every side mission, and got every single fucking Riddler trophy, which was not an easy feat, by the way. Some of those are really stupid, which is my only complaint. I'm gonna say it. Well, I'ma say it. This game encapsulates Batman like nothing else really does. Other Batman-related media is good, don't get me wrong. I get down on some Nolan Dark Knight, some Robert Pattinson, but none of that really captures the essence of Batman quite like this game does. It's like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Those movies are to this day the most Marvel comic book feeling movies ever made, and it's not because everything else is bad, but nothing else really captures that same essence. Like Spider-Man 2 is just a beautiful Spider-Man movie through and through, and none of the other movies, while good, really have the same Spider-Man feel to it. And I'ma say it. Spider-Man 3 is good. You all just hated it because Spider-Man was black for a while. That's why y'all love Spider-Verse, because there's no black people in that movie. Not a single black person in the entire movie. Final comment, I like the costumes. Monkey-like costumes. What y'all know about Batman Beyond? Because I don't know much. I watched that shit when I was like 5, and I can't remember anything about it, but this suit in the game is fire. Batman. Love Batman. We love Batman around here. Before we go to the top dog, let me give some honorable mentions out of the way right now. I don't know if anyone noticed this game's absence and assumed it was my number one, but no, it's not. I didn't play this game in 2025, I got through the whole thing in the last month of 2024. But if there was anything that captured the Batman essence more than Arkham City, it's this. Fantastic game, 10 out of 10, love me some Batman. Me and my friends picked this game up at some point in the latter half of 2024 and didn't pick it up again until October 2025, so I figured I'd at least give it a mention. It's fun. That's all I got, basically. I don't know. I still want to play the third one, even though people don't like it. I don't really trust the opinions of gamers on anything anymore.
Man, fuck this game. Again, started game tail end of 2024, so I didn't include it on the list, but if I did, it would easily be on the bottom. It's crazy how fast I dropped out of the honeymoon phase for this game, dude. I sank a healthy 200 and something hours into this shit and got very involved in the community for a bit, which, by the way, those people are fucking stupid. Genuinely. It was around that stupid update where they introduced synergy rotation where I dropped out. I tried it again to see Phoenix and Blade, and it did not hook me back. Oh well, fun while it lasted, I guess. I originally had this game on the list, but it's so early in development that I decided it wouldn't be fair to include it. My thoughts were already put out pretty well in my Steam review, so I'll just show y'all that. Excited to see game's future content. And now, number 1. Best game I played in the year of 2025 goes to... Yeah, not a crazy pick, but listen, sometimes the general populace consensus on something is just right. There's a reason this game is like the 3rd or 4th best-selling game of all time. I mean it wholeheartedly when I say that this game changed my life. I think I have genuinely become a better person because of this game, which is something I cannot say about any other game I've ever played. This is probably the most well-written story I've ever experienced. I'm serious. This blows Lewis out of the water, this blows Shakespeare out of the water, this blows everything out of the water. I might be exaggerating a little bit, it's definitely not without its flaws, but my god, the thought that was put into every minute of detail, every minuscule stroke of the creative brush, it all fits together like clockwork. And brother, I think I'm a chronometrophile. That means I want to fuck clocks. The highlight is pretty blatantly the characters. Each member of the game is so compelling in their own way, even the ones who kind of got sidelined. Hosea, Dutch, Micah, John, and of course Arthur are all masterfully portrayed, but I found myself getting incredibly attached to Pearson, Lenny, Miss Grimshaw, Sean, Mary Beth, Karen, Kieran, hell, even Tilly. And seeing Bill and Javier in this younger stage slowly spiraling down into the people we see them as in the first game due to blind... Slowly spiraling down to the people we see them as in the first game due to blind loyalty makes me wonder if things could have gone differently. Honestly, I wish we could have seen more of it. So much of this game's experience is spent just riding around the open country on your horse, and that's actually something I like about the game. It gives you these stretches of time where you just take in the atmosphere and the environment, maybe stumble across an event or a place you've never been before or a mutilated corpse. And it works because the game is beautiful. I mean, stunningly beautiful. The graphical fidelity is, of course, impressive, but it's not even that, it's the lighting, the animations, the subtle music, the variety in the weather, the horseball's shrinking mechanics. It's received quite a bit of criticism for being more of a movie than a game, like many story games of this nature are, but unlike The Last of Us or Mid-Spatch, yeah, I'm fucking throwing shade, the interactivity that's present in this game, as well as the exploration and side quests, more than justifies its medium, and I won't stand for any more of your bullshit about it not really being a game. That being said, here's my one big criticism. Gameplay definitely could have been better. Every mission is just the same shootout, every problem is solved with a shootout, and the shooting really isn't anything special either. However, if this game had a more dynamic, interesting gameplay experience, it would genuinely be too good to exist, I fear. Earns its hype and then some, a more than worthy top pick for the list. That's all I got for y'all. Have a good day.